Welcome back to another groundbreaking episode of Construction Tech Talk. I'm your host, Nick Peret, and today we're embarking on a captivating journey that fuses cutting-edge technology with the age-old art of craft and relationships. In the spotlight, we have the privilege of welcoming Chris Johnson, the mastermind behind business development at Isaksen Solar, a trailblazer in the solar industry with an unwavering commitment to quality and a track record that speaks for itself. Isaksen Solar is not just installing panels, they're paving the way to a sustainable future. Now, Chris is the architect of partnerships and the voice of solar education. He's here to share his secrets on building trust, seizing opportunities, and illuminating the path to energy independence. Get ready to soak up some rays of wisdom that will transform your perception of solar and ignite your passion for innovation. Let's dive in. Chris, my friend, what's going on?
How you doing?
Hey, I'm living the dream. How you doing?
Living the dream and occasionally trying to wake up.
I feel that, man. You're the driving force behind Isaksen Solar's business development, right? So I want you to take us back a little bit to the moment that kind of sparked your interest, your passion for solar, renewable energy, that kind of led you to this pivotal role in the business development and sales position for the company.
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest factors was there's just a huge push of electricity everywhere. Everything going electric, from vehicles to mini splits and everything else, steering away from fossil fuels. So obviously there's a huge positive environmental impact on doing that.
Yeah.
And also because there's so many things that are trying to get pushed towards people going electric, that just means that people are looking for ways to save on their cost of electricity, because the cost of electricity keeps on increasing. So your demand for electricity is increasing and the cost is increasing. Yep. That's not a good combination. No, I wanted to see how I can help ensure to protect people's financial future by not only obviously being part of the Isaksen team. I was in sales for 4 years. I did business development for disaster restoration prior to moving over to Isaksen, and basically just talked to the owners and said, "Hey, I want to replicate what I did for them, for you guys, just to be on the community, help build the relationships and education, and build a brand." So that's what I'm doing today.
I noticed that. So when I was doing research on you, Chris, I saw that you've been in this space for a while. So when you're looking at home service, disaster recovery, what kind of attracted you to that space? And for anybody else who might be thinking about a career in these kind of industries, do you have any advice for them?
I think that one of the biggest things, I don't know if I necessarily was attracted to the industry per se. It was more of just being active and networking and being involved with like area chambers of commerce and stuff like that, just building connections. Because when you build connections, you're building relationships, and those relationships spill over to other parts of your life and potential jobs in the future. Just when people buy something, they're buying from you and not necessarily just a product or just a company. So that's kind of the direction.
Before this company, I ran a marketing company. We automated some of the prospecting for commercial roofing contractors, and I had that for 6 years. And it was the same situation for me. It's not like I was looking to go into the space or anything like that, but I always say the roofing space found me, man. And I met, it became a little family for me, to be honest with you, where I met so many great people that were so welcoming to me and stuff like that, that it just happens. Relationships are built, and that's usually where the opportunity are. You have a great opportunity to collaborate with people and really maximize those opportunities.
Yeah, I always tell people, because I used to work for a janitorial supply company. So I say people that bought toilet paper from me 15 years ago are buying solar from me now just because they know me and trust me, not just because I work for a solar company.
Yeah, that's cool, man. All right. You guys are renowned. I looked you guys up online. You guys have great reviews, a great online presence, right? So the reputation is very high, right? And you guys like to say the world's best solar customer experience. So peel that back for me a little bit. What do you guys think differentiates you guys from some of the competition when you're talking about specifically that customer experience and the relationship side of things?
I think one of the biggest things is, and it's not like this in every different business or industry, but honesty. I think salespeople, people's perception is you're going to be trying to sell something and they're going to just lie to their teeth to make the sale.
Yep.
For us as a company, our focus is on honesty. We're not there to make a sale. We're there to build a relationship and educate. If it's going to work, great. If it's
Yep.
not going to work, we'll tell you. We're not just going to do whatever we need to do to make a buck. And doing that, I think, is what leads to our good reputation and leads to the reviews that you see online. We're not just there to get you to sign something quick and throw something on your roof and walk away. It's a long-term commitment that we're trying to establish.
Yeah. No, I love that. So now I think a big part of this too, especially when you're looking at the solar side, is you're not just a solar expert, you're really an educator, right? And you really have to educate and inform some of these customers about some of the potential with renewable energy with solar. Now, tell me little bit about that, because I think every sales aspect might be a little bit different. Because if you're looking at roofing, I think you might not have to educate or provide as much information as you would in solar, where they're not as informed. They don't know what they don't know. So, what is that process like? And how do you really take those maybe skeptics into solar enthusiasts?
I think the biggest thing for me in my role as business development is to try to get as many advocates out there for the industry as possible
Mm.
so that they can do the advocating and the promoting so we don't have to do as much. If
Yeah.
we're just out there, every salesperson has these one-on-one conversation with people, that's going to take that's a daunting task to have one-on-one conversations with everybody. But if
Mhm.
we get people to buy in, like realtors and architects and builders and contractors, and build relationships and educate them at the ground level
Yeah.
when it comes to construction and commercial and residential property, that's the niche that we're trying to do. It's not just about affecting our business, but we want to help build up the industry as a whole and clear up different misconceptions and things like that in the industry as well.
I love that. For people out there, I'm out here in Denver, so we got 300 days of sunshine a year, right? So great opportunity for solar out here. When you're when you're thinking about people, let's just say it's a solar company out here in Denver, Colorado, and they're looking to say, hey, who are my best relationships, right? You mentioned real estate, you mentioned contractors and stuff like that. Who would you suggest to try to have them network with and build rapport with to have the greatest opportunity on their business and their sales?
I think realtors would probably be the one of the main ones,
Mm,
just because they're in touch with so many people in
yeah.
so many different industries and on the commercial side and the residential side. Building those relationships with them because they're the go-to when
Yeah.
it comes to information. A lot of people rely on their expertise. And if you have a realtor that's showing houses and there's one that has solar on it and the realtor isn't a fan of solar, you're not even going to look at that house.
Mm,
So if you can get as many realtors out there to buy in to solar and be educated on it, obviously, I'm not saying it's perfect for everybody. And there's downsides and upsides, but we just want to try to avoid those negative conversations right off the bat based on their own personal experiences and bias and translate it to a customer.
hmm Now, when you're building relationships with those real estate agents, obviously, when you're networking, you're always trying to figure out ways that you can provide value.
Mm.
How do you think you do that as a solar company, where you're like, hey, I'm providing value to you, and I'm someone in your back pocket that you can utilize?
Yeah, I do trainings. I do informational sessions, lunch and learns, things like that at the offices. It's usually maybe 5 to 7 minute PowerPoint and about an hour and a half of questions.
Wow.
They'll throw questions at me based on their own personal experiences or things that they dealt with. I'm constantly getting sent contracts for somebody's representing a buyer and they have this lease that they're, potentially walking into. They're not sure if it's a good deal or not. It's not an Isaksen property. We had nothing to do with it, but we'll review those contracts and say, hey, this looks like it's going to be a good deal for the customer. Definitely, we suggest that it's a no-brainer. Or we'll be honest and say, hey, it's not that great. Obviously, it's the customer's, final decision, but we'll give our most educated advice. That way, for us, it's not about the realtor or the architect or builder learning all this information. We don't want them to have something new that they have to learn. They just have to learn our phone number.
Yeah.
And as long as they know that we're there as a resource to help them, all they have to do is say, I know a guy or I know a girl. We'll take it from there.
Yeah, I like that. All right. So obviously, when you're looking at solar, we talked about education and making sure that you're informing these customers and giving them the info and details that they just don't know. And that's a big part of that sales cycle. But the industry still has some myths and misconceptions just because of that unknown information. Now, what are some of the most prevalent myths that you encounter? And can you help us debunk these so that we have the right information?
Yeah. So I don't know if there's necessarily myths, but there's a lot of people focused on negative things that happened sometimes 10, 15, 20 years ago, right when the industry started developing. It's just saying, hey, this is fact. And it's happening now when the majority of the time it's not.
Yeah.
A big concern, obviously, is roof leaks. If you have a company that is just using a fly-by-night contractor and they're subbing out the work, there's a lot more potential for roof leaks than somebody that does this is all they do day in and day out. Same thing with the roof condition. You want to make sure your roof is in good condition. If anybody knows it's with the experience that you had, you want to make sure that you're putting something on a good roof. So the company that you're working with, you want to make sure that they're checking and making sure that it's a good roof and it's going to be good for solar. And if the solar is done the right way, then you don't have to worry about it affecting the warranty, as some people think that the second you put solar panels, it voids a warranty on your roof. That's not necessarily the case too. The issue, people are concerned about the fire department, and the fire department doesn't know what to do with solar panels. Obviously, they've been around for a while. I'm part of an association with fire chiefs. They know what they're doing. They get trained on the stuff. They know how to interact with it. There's new fire codes that are put into place to protect the fire department. So a lot of things that have happened since 10, 15 years ago to make the industry safer and better. It's just a matter of educating people to help them realize that.
Yeah, and any industry is going to have that, right? When an industry is brand new and starts taking off, and just the way that solar has been taking off, there's going to be bumps in the road, right? It's not going to be perfect, but you got to think with technology and how fast everything is developing, they solve those problems pretty quickly. So just because it might have been a few issues in the beginning doesn't mean that those are still prevalent in the space now. And you mentioned roofing, right? You mentioned making sure that you have a roof that doesn't leak and making sure you have the right contractor for that and stuff. Now, what about for roofing contractors? So I have a lot of roofing contractor friends that I know that have been partnering up with solar companies and stuff like that. What suggestions do you have for roofing contractors out there when maybe looking for a solar partner or trying to figure out how to really handle that relationship to maximize opportunity for their business and for their clients?
I think for me personally, the relationship is built on trust and experience. So if you want to partner with a company like Isaksen, you need to make sure you're on your game. Because anybody that we refer is a reflection on us as a company.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that your work is solid, your history is solid, your reputation is great. Because if being the 5-star rated company that we are, we want to make sure that we stay that way. Do what you need to do, get the insurance that you need, do the trainings that you need. and just stay on top of your game and not just do things just to get in and get out of a job.
Yeah, 100%. And then you also mentioned like not all roofs are good for solar. We're going to figure out if it is good for solar. What are some of the aspects that make up a home that is the right fit for solar?
I think it's probably easier to talk about the ones that aren't a good fit.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest issues is vent pipes. And that's one of the things that I want to work on with the relationships that I'm building with the architects and builders and contractors is just don't stick a vent pipe right where it needs to go. Spend a little time, run it on the inside of the attic and poke it up higher, closer to the ridge. That's going to prevent somebody that wants to go solar in the future. They may say, you know what, I don't want 12 or 11 panels and then one hole in the middle with a vent pipe. They definitely want just nice, clean 12 panels going across.
Yeah.
So if the vent pipes are put where they need to go out of the way, it takes a couple of minutes and maybe a couple of extra pieces of pipe to do that, but it's much better for customer experience in the future.
Yeah.
Same thing goes for dormers. The more dormers that are on the house, more difficult when it comes to having to put panels up and just roof position in general. Some people think, hey, south facing, if my roof's south facing, that's how I'm going to generate the most electricity. Not necessarily. If you have a south facing roof, you're going to generate a lot of power on that south side. But if you need more power than that, you're stuck with just that one side.
Mm-hmm.
So west, you'll get maybe 80% sun on both sides as opposed to 100% on one, but now you can use both sides. The time, if a house is using a good amount of electricity, east-west is better than just south, just because of the number of panels you can put. Too.
Yeah. So what about the financial aspect is always interesting, right? That's a big talking point, right? I know I'm not sure if there still is. I know at one point there was some sort of tax savings. I would like you to go into some of that stuff, and then also to just, like the financing options, possibly, if you guys offer that kind of stuff, and kind of comparing that to what energy bills are currently for somebody who might not have it versus what they potentially could be.
Yeah. Generally, if somebody wants to go solar, they're going to save probably at the minimum 20%, probably between 30 and 50% on their electric bill if their house is good for solar. The best thing for them to do if they can is to buy versus lease, but not everybody's situation is able to do that. Especially now, within the past year or two, the interest rates have dramatically spiked. Yeah. So that's made it difficult for some people to be able to get loans and afford monthly payments. When I first started 4 years ago, it was a no-brainer. We're at 0.99% interest rates.
Yeah.
So the monthly payment for the solar was a lot cheaper than whatever their electric bill is. Now that's not necessarily the case. We do leasing as well as the ownership, but it's more about a conversation of what's best for the customer. You'll see a lot of companies that own the financing, so they'll get the incentives for the lease from the customer. So they'll get the federal tax credits and stuff, the installer. With us, we don't own the financing, so we don't see any of that. So for us, it's just about, hey, what makes most sense for you? If you're retired and you're not paying into taxes, then you're probably not going to be eligible for that 30% federal tax credit. So you may want to lease, or we do what's called a power purchase agreement. If you're still working and you're active and you're going to be in the house for at least 10, 12, 15 years or longer, it may make sense to buy just because you're going to be able to get a return on your investment and it makes sense financially. So we can have those kind of conversations with the customer just to help them figure out what's best for them. It's not a cookie cutter, everybody should lease or everybody should buy.
So you can actually lease solar panels.
Yeah, so essentially a power purchase agreement is something where when you own the system and you buy it, you're essentially buying the equipment that makes the electricity. When you lease the system or get a power purchase agreement, you're just buying the electricity itself. So you'll see sometimes, at least we do around here, you guys probably too, whatever you do, don't buy solar panels. If you live in one of these 11 states, is one of the ads that I see all the time. So the government will give them to you for free. And that's the line of trying to get people to buy from them. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as free. Essentially what they're doing, what they're doing is they're selling a lease because you're not paying for the solar panels, but you're just paying for the electricity. So you're getting solar panels for free because you're not paying for them, but you still have to pay something. You have to pay for the power. It's one of those, being in marketing and business development for as long as I have, I've seen there's different ways to make things sound good. We just want to be honest with people. That's the cleanest approach to be able to sleep at night and get
Amen.
referrals.
And referrals is the best kind of business you can get, right? Good things happen when you
Okay.
execute and you get referred business, baby. I love it. So do you guys do commercial? Do you guys, and if you do, I would like to know a little bit more about that. Like what kind of buildings are looking at solar as a potential opportunity for them?
Yeah, we do mostly small commercial. We
Mhm.
don't do a ton of like larger stuff. We have the capacity to, but we're not really focused on that right now.
Mm.
Things like car washes that are just sitting there, have a flat roof, using electricity, commercial flat roof buildings like in downtown that have a ton of space. That's just utilize. It's a perfect opportunity to utilize the space and generate some power. A big thing too is we'll see homeowners that say they have a high electric bill on their house, but they own a commercial property. And this scenario happens a lot. The wife does not want the panels on the house. Hate to look at them, don't want to see them.
Happy wife, happy life too, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
So what you can do is if your business is in the same grid area as your residential house, you can put the panels on the business and then just send the power to your own personal home
No kidding.
and pay for the bill that way. So you get the benefits of solar and you get a write off on your business, but you don't have to worry about having the panels physically on the house. So obviously,
Wow.
like I said, it has to be on the same grid. So even like where I am, we have Eversource. There's Eversource throughout the coast, but there's different sections of it. So like Metro Boston isn't on the same grid as like Southeastern Mass where I am.
Yeah.
So even though it's in the same company, it can't be shared. So
How
there's
big
different
is a
stability.
grid usually? Like how far does that usually expand? Is it
It really varies.
yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason. We have one town that in Massachusetts, Westport, Mass, that has
Yeah.
there's two different grids that support that town. So
Wow.
that's I don't even know.
Yeah. So I gotta at least ask about it. I think it's a hot topic and an interesting product. Is
Mm.
the Tesla solar roof? So you guys
Yep.
do install the Tesla solar roofs?
Yep. So we're the only certified installer in Mass Rhode Island for Tesla
Wow.
Solar, which is awesome.
So what does that process look like to become a certified Tesla installer?
You basically have to be on your game and have had a ton of conversations with the company and prove that you're worthy of their business.
Mm.
And that's what they saw in us. They reached out to us.
Wow.
And we done some work with their batteries prior to that. And then they saw our reputation and they didn't really want to deal with it anymore. So where we know it should be. And we did the same. We did our research and made sure the product was where we wanted it to be as well. And the service side. And there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. The price is up there. So it's definitely a niche product.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the market, it's also generating leads for regular solar too, because not every customer is able to afford the solar roof.
Yeah.
But it's always generating leads for, oh, if you can't do the solar roof, let's look at the cost of regular solar panels, see if that may work for you too.
So
It's,
what's the difference really with that Tesla solar roof? What obviously you got the Tesla brand name, which speaks for
Mhm.
itself,
Yeah,
right? But what makes it so unique? What do you say?
I think the beauty of it is it just replaces your existing roof and you eliminate the objection of, I hate the look of solar panels because there's active panels, active shingles on there that are creating electricity and there's inactive ones. But from the naked eye, if you're not right up against the house, you really can't tell the difference.
Wow.
And just aesthetically, it looks like a regular roof, but it's generating power at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Do
that's pretty
you
wild.
think they're going to be like one of the future headlining products, or what's your kind of expectations there?
That seems to be the direction that things are heading, especially because everyone's so focused on the aesthetics. And even on the real estate side, if a house has solar now, the panels look a lot better if they were installed a couple of years ago, 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Before that, to be honest, some of the solar panels out there are pretty ugly. Aesthetically, not to have that kind of stumbling block or that objection is going to be huge in the future. You get the benefits, but not the stuff you have to look at.
And I'll even pull one up right here. Look how nice that looks.
Yeah.
You can't even tell that there's panels on there because it's not technically, right? So it's a shingle, basically. It's a solar shingle, or
Yeah. So every single one of those, almost like an asphalt shingle, every single one of those shingles on the roof is generating some power, and then they're strung together and they take care of the needs of the home.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah. I like the look of that. I might have to get those installed one day.
Yeah.
I like those.
We'll get licensed in Colorado just for you.
Yeah, come on out, guys. I need you. All right, just hook it up. Say it's James Tasca's buddy. You guys are good friends, and say you got to do a favor, right?
Sounds good. I'll see.
So you had a couple other products. I just wanted to see if you can go into detail for me, and then we'll switch to the sales side. I want to get some more sales advice from you because I know you're really expert with that stuff, especially with the building the relationships. So solar battery storage and ground mount solar systems. Can you explain that stuff to me?
Yeah. So our tagline, solar made simple. So I do, keep it as simple as possible for me and for you. Essentially, the battery backup systems that are being developed now, one of the benefits of the newer ones is if you lose power, with the older ones, a lot of times when you lose power, you have to wait for the grid to come back on once the battery is drained in order for them to charge back up.
Yeah.
The newer batteries that are coming out now, once the sun comes up, it's looking for that sun and it'll fill your battery back up just based on the sun exposure and doesn't have to be tied to the grid.
Wow.
I'm not sure how it is where you are, but in Massillon, Rhode Island, you can't disconnect from the utility. You have to stay connected to the utility, so you can't go quote unquote off grid. So you always have to still be tied to them no matter what. They have some control issues. So people complain about that a lot, but being tied to the grid is a benefit in some ways because if you lose power and your battery's drained, now you still have power and you don't have to worry about not having anything. So there's definitely an upside to it.
God.
And then the ground mounted systems, we'll see a lot of those in areas where people have a good amount of land or they have a large yard. They don't want to put the panels on the roof or the house isn't facing in the right position. Or I've had houses that have a ton of dormers and it just doesn't make sense to put panels on the roof. And that we can put them in the ground. The only thing that we outsource, because we do all the work ourselves, is the racking systems for the ground mounted systems.
Wow.
They bring in equipment and they drive through granite, rock, whatever it is, and go down, I think, more than 6 feet into the ground to make sure that the racking is secure and it's not going anywhere for 100 years. Just because when you're doing that, you don't want them to move around. You don't want anything to affect it. There's different regulations as far as property lines. So it has to be a certain distance from a property line. There's some areas of towns that say, hey, we don't want it in front of your house. So it can't be visible within 350 feet of the front of your house. Same thing with the back. Wetlands has to be within 100 feet from wetlands or can't be within 100 feet from wetlands.
Okay.
A lot of things. One of the biggest bonuses of it is you can face it as perfectly south as possible. The better sun exposure you get, the less panels you need to generate more power. And by doing so, you're going to save money. So,
Hey, I appreciate the explanations because I just learned a lot there. I didn't know about any of that. So thank you very much. Chris, now we'll switch back to the sales side of things. Now, when you're looking at the art of business development, right? Of course, not all leads are created equally. Some some are better than others, right? And contractors get it all the time. You get the tire kickers or whatever it might be, right? What are some like the green flags that you look for when identifying a really good lead and opportunity?
I think a big thing is looking for just being honest with people and knowing that when they're looking for solar, just because they're interested in it, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good fit.
Mhm.
So when it comes to somebody that has a house, rather than saying, "Oh, great, I'll come over and meet with you and we'll go over whether or not it's going to work," I'm like, "All right, let me get your address, let me get your electric bill, let me see if it makes sense." Because when people call and say that they're excited about the opportunity for solar, it just may not work depending on that. So rather than forcing them into an appointment and wasting their time, we'd rather actually look at it ahead of time. We can look it up on our software. It creates a heat map of sorts.
Yeah.
So we can know whether or not the house is going to be a good fit. And sometimes we have to say, "Hey, sorry, unfortunately, your house just doesn't get enough sun to justify going solar."
Yeah.
And one thing that I've seen a number of times, which hopefully this changes, but in our design software, we have the ability to put trees into the designs. And doing that, obviously, we get a overall view of whether or not the trees are going to shade and hinder production.
Mhm.
There's some companies that don't put trees, or some reps that don't put trees into the designs, and that hurts the customer because they're seeing this house that's producing a ton of electricity when it's actually not. It's
Yeah.
just based on the design software. We were able to review other companies' proposals and just help them. Sometimes they're excited and they had this other company say, "Hey, this is what you can get." And then we come back and say, "Well, you can actually only get about half of that. And it's going to cost you a lot more because you need a lot more panels." But they appreciate the honesty.
Oh, for
You
sure.
know, even though it may either cost them more to get what they want, or they can't move forward at all. A lot of times those conversations lead to the referrals because they know that they're looking out for their best interest and rather than ours. And don't it just goes back to the honesty and don't doing what's right by people.
I think that kind of led into my next question, which you've been answering throughout the episode. Is I was going to talk about how you differentiate yourself and compel clients to go with you over other companies. For me, it seems like honestly the vetting process that you guys go through, the attention to detail. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But if you want to go any deeper on that or give any advice to other companies out there that are really looking to figure out what their unique selling proposition is and how to really lean into that to grow their business.
Yeah, I think just be willing to walk away.
Hmm.
Just don't expect a sale when you walk in. Don't force people to sign something just because. I think one thing that separates us from a lot of our competition is we don't knock on doors.
Oh,
And doing that, being a successful company and not doing that means that there are a lot of other companies that can be successful and not do that. I think
yeah.
one of the negative things that come along with when somebody says solar, they're picturing somebody knocking on their door with a clipboard trying to get them to sell something.
Great line.
Overcoming it, I make a joke. I make a joke, but I'm actually serious when people ask. But whenever they complain about somebody knocking on their door for solar, I just say, "Hey, I have a bunch of lawn signs. If you want to just stick an Isaksen solar lawn sign right in the front of your house, they they may think the solar panels are on the back and just keep walking. I don't know, but just answering their questions, just being honest and open, getting to know the person and finding out what their likes and dislikes are, and not just walking in and being super serious and focused on business.
Mhm.
We'll be at an appointment sometimes for 3 hours, just chatting about anything. And then we'll walk out of there and not get a sale yet. But a week later, they'll reach out back to us with a couple of questions, or we'll reach out back to them. And within a couple of weeks, they're on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, just not having that second you meet with somebody, you have to get them to sign because that comes across to the end consumer and it makes them uncomfortable.
So, what about the companies that are out there door knocking? Do you think they should switch up their strategy?
There are some some successful companies that are doing it and they're doing it right. So not necessarily,
Mm.
but if they're struggling with it, I think maybe worth evaluating just how they're going about it to see if there's a better way to try to get business.
It's a grind. It's a
Mm.
grind, I feel. And if you can do something that's creating inbound referrals or whatever it might be, and you switch from that door knocking and sales process, it sounds pretty good for me. And if I'm a salesperson too, I would rather do that than go knock doors, right? To go build
Yeah.
those relationships and whatever you can do for inbound traffic rather than knock doors. I
Yeah.
would probably prefer that, right? Whatever you can do
And
there. Go ahead.
I think what happens too is the canvassing a lot of times isn't done by the salesperson.
Yeah.
Well, being in sales, I didn't get these gray hairs overnight. So I've been doing this for a while, but when it comes to sales, I like to talk to the person myself and build that relationship and build that rapport from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's how you make the sale. You're not just making the sale walking in the door, or you're making the sale the second you talk to them for the first time.
Yeah.
So if you're the one setting your own appointments and creating those relationships right off the bat, I think the sales are going to be much more successful and stick as
Yeah.
opposed to someone else doing it for you, that initial introduction at least.
Yeah, I know. I 100% agree. Now, I want to go into the inevitable part of the sales process, objections. I'm sure you've never had an objection before, but people like me deal with them all the time, right? What are some of the most common concerns or objections that you guys run into when you're presenting these solutions to potential clients, and how do you skillfully navigate and overcome those to keep that sales momentum going?
Yeah, I think the key to objections is overcoming them before they occur.
Mm.
So just laying things out ahead of time and talking about roof condition, talking about the fire setbacks, and bringing up these things before they do is going to make the sales process and just the appointment a lot easier. Because if they have to bring it up, then it's just going to be a long, drawn out thing. A lot. You've probably seen it in what you do, but when you walk in and you see somebody that has a big checklist of questions or a big paper full of questions, and while you're talking, they're like crossing stuff out or they're checking stuff off because they don't have to ask anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can do that, that's going to help alleviate. We talked about things like the roof leaks and shading. Some people think that their house isn't good for solar because of some trees around, but when we look at the shade analysis, it may not affect them because of the tree position, or there may be a certain tree that needs to be removed in order to get better production. We don't like to promote tree removal. You can always replant a tree, just make sure that it's not one that's going to grow as high.
Yeah.
So there's ways to do things the right way without really making it a negative experience for the customer.
Said so, it's just knock out those objections right off the bat, right? Know those common concerns, objections, prepare ahead time, and present those from the very beginning to avoid that later in that sales cycle. I love that. That's a great response and a great strategy. Now, obviously, in the world of sales, closing the deal is the ultimate goal. So take us inside your mind and share some of your most effective closing techniques. Like, how do you make sure there's that sense of urgency, articulate the value, and really inspire that client to make that final leap into solar adoption?
I think being as much of an educational resource as possible so that you can walk away and then say, wow, I know a lot more than I did an hour ago or a half hour ago, whatever it is. We have the tendency of when we're meeting with people, just saying, hey, we'll send everything over, get back to us when you're ready to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're like, oh, we're ready to go. And sometimes they're not. But having that relaxed approach seems to work for us because we're not, like I said, time and time again, we're not there to make the sale. We're there to help people. And that comes across. So that low pressure technique seems to work for the company from a closing perspective. I think one of the reasons why I'm not in sales anymore is I hated that transition from, all right, here's all the information to now, what do you want to do? So I may not be the best to attest to how to close,
I like
Yeah,
your approach though. I like your nobody likes to be pressured into buying something.
yeah, yep. And sometimes we'll get calls of somebody that got pressured into buying something, and then 3 days later they say, "Hey, I heard great things about your company. I signed this, but can I still meet with you?" And absolutely, if the panel's not on your roof yet, it's you have the ability to do what you need to do and research and switch over if that's what you'd like to do.
Do you have any stories that you could share with us? Maybe a customer that was hesitant, worried, and really skeptic, and you were able to inform them, convert them into a solar believer, and they became just a solar champion, someone that is just super excited that they decided to do it.
I think I'm not sure if you ever dealt with engineers
Yeah.
before,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're severely analytical.
Oh,
So
yeah.
whenever somebody says they're an engineer, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh man, this is not gonna go. But then I just say, strap in. All right, let's go. And I've had a retired engineer in Virginia. I met with her, and she literally had handwritten, not typed out, not on a computer, handwritten spreadsheets for 10 years of all her electricity usage and the cost and kilowatt hours and everything else. And she had a list of probably about 30 questions on the initial appointment, which
Wow.
is believe that there was more appointments after that. But just being able to answer her questions, and then if I got to one that I didn't know the answer, I either made a call right then and there and
Yeah.
got somebody on the phone that knew the answer, or followed up with her and made sure she got the answer she wanted. And like I said, the entire time, I wasn't trying to make the sale. I was just trying to help educate her and get her more informed. And she felt that and appreciated that. And
Probably
then
loved you.
ultimately, she did. She still sends me texts. She's a little granola, so she makes her own kombucha, and
Oh.
she gave me some stuff to help teach me how to make it, and
I
she goes
love it.
cohogging and gives me cohogs every year. It's about relationships, building that rapport with people, connecting with them on a personal level, not just walking in trying to sell them something and walk away. Just connecting with people goes a long way, and it worked for her too, because she refers a bunch of potential business and gets referral bonus on top of it.
Yeah.
Definitely a plus.
Oh, I love that. That's a good story. All right. So I did want to ask you though. So you mentioned a few different tools. Is there any kind of like technologies or softwares that you guys use that you would suggest?
Not really. Most of the technology that we use is available to all the solar companies from a design software perspective.
Yeah.
We use Salesforce for the back ends, for CRM and everything else.
Cool.
There's a book, How to Make Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
That I think should be on the top reading list. That was when I went in for my first day of training. That was the first thing that was handed to me and said, "Read this. That's your
Such a good
that's
book too. Such a classic.
yeah, that's your sales training. Read that, do that, and you'll succeed."
Yeah.
Just going back to those relationships.
Yeah.
Just take advantage of it.
Yeah. All right. The solar industry obviously is a hotbed for innovation. So when you're gazing into the future, what kind of emerging trends or cutting edge advancements do you see the industry going into? What do you see the future of solar?
Yeah, there are some people that come up to me and say, "Hey, I don't know if I should do this yet because there's so many advances in the industry that if I pull the trigger now, I'm going to miss out." I've been in the industry for 4 years, and the production of the panels has about doubled from what they were originally when I came into the industry. The only way they've doubled is they made the panels bigger.
Yeah.
If you're going to make something bigger, obviously it's going to produce more. So it seems like there's a bunch of advancements. There really hasn't been. So if people are waiting for those major milestones to come up, you're not really going to gain much you're going to lose more by waiting, because you're going to end up, whatever advancements there are, this stuff's going to cost more, obviously. And it's going to affect your return on investment.
Yeah.
I think the solar roof is probably the biggest advantage that we have right now. It's made tremendous advancements in the technology and the design and the installation process just over the past couple of years. It's far better than it was 2 years ago. So that's why we decided to jump in now. So I think that's probably one of the biggest cutting edge technologies that are being developed is
Yeah.
just the solar shingles as opposed to having the panels themselves. There's in other countries, they got solar built into the paint lines on the highway. They're putting into car development, having solar generated in cars. Just the industry as a whole is amazing, taking advantage of the sun. I wasn't too happy yesterday when during the solar eclipse, I watched my app for solar drop dramatically. As the sun got covered, my electricity production tanked, but then I saw it come up again. It's
Hey,
not going to happen.
yeah, another 20
Nothing
years,
coming
right? Or something like that.
Well, I guess I'll deal with it.
So you actually
But,
actually have solar then?
yeah. Yep.
Oh,
I
that's
bought a
cool.
house a couple of years ago and just put it up as quick as I could. I have a couple of batteries for backup. So I practice what I preach.
I love that. I love you got to. So,
Yeah.
hey, you've been an absolute pleasure, Chris. I got one more heavy hitter question for you, though.
Okay.
I always end it with some wisdom. All right. So, for all the inspiring sales, business development stars, and all these people who are trying to revolutionize the space with renewable energy and solar, I want some wisdom, man. What are some of the key ingredients for these people to be successful and have a fulfilling career in this dynamic field?
Just treat everybody like they're your family. Probably a family member that you like, hopefully.
Yeah.
Just like I said throughout the entire time, just be honest with people. Do what's right by them. Obviously, if you're in a sales role, you have some pressure to make a sale, but you want to try to not let that come across to your customer because that pressure doesn't help anybody.
No.
I used to sell insurance, and I had some people that said, "Hey, the last guy I talked with, he broke down crying and said that if we didn't buy from him, that he'd end up getting divorced
Oh,
and his wife would leave
no.
him." Something else. Like,
Oh,
can't do
no.
that.
No, you
That
cannot do that. But that's what
No, that was
happens, though, man, when those high pressure, you know how it is. If the culture's like that, it will break you down, man. It will
Yep.
break you down.
Absolutely. So
But
I think just getting to know people on a personal level, being honest with them, doing what's right by them, you can't go wrong. And you'll sleep at night.
Yeah.
And that's what helps with the referrals too, because being honest with people and upfront, if it's not going to work, let them know. And 2, 3, 4 referrals that they send over a year that gets installed, they're going to get a referral bonus. That'll take care of the electric bill. Rather than trying to sell them something that's just not going to make financial sense for them.
hey, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I really do appreciate your time. You have dropped some wisdom, and I think it's really going to help out a lot of people in the space take their game to the next level. So I really appreciate the knowledge and the time, my friend.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And there you have it, folks. A dazzling display of insight, innovation, and the spirit of solar. I'd like to thank Chris Johnson, the head of business development at Isaksen Solar, for showing us what the bright future of solar is all about, and the power of connection, education, and unwavering commitment. If Chris's words have ignited a spark within you, if you're ready to embark on your own solar journey, we invite you to visit their website at isaksensolar.com. Here you can discover how their team of experts can help you harness the boundless energy of the sun and transform your relationship with power. Let this episode serve as a reminder that the true builders of tomorrow are not just the ones that lay the bricks, but those who forge the relationships, shine the light on knowledge, and dare to dream of a world powered by innovation. Before we sign off, a quick word about Better Boss, our own venture that is also elevating the construction industry. At Better Boss, we're passionate about harnessing technology to streamline your business operations. From sales and estimating to project management and beyond, our goal is not to just improve your job finances and customer experiences, but to transform your business into a model of efficiency and innovation. Discover how Better Boss can make a difference for you at betterboss.io. Join us next time as we continue to explore the innovation shaping our industry. I'm Nick Peret, thanking you for tuning in and remind you that in the world of construction, you're not just building structures, you're building the future. This is Construction Tech Talk, signing off. Until next time.